On October 28, 1886, a crowd stood in silence as a giant copper figure rose above the harbor. Ships stopped moving. Hats came off. Eyes filled with tears. The people believed they were watching the birth of freedom. But the truth behind that moment was far more complex than most people were ever told. The story began long before that day. In 1865, the American Civil War ended. The nation stood wounded but alive. Across the ocean in France, a man named Frederick Auguste Bartholdi dreamed of building a monument. He did not simply want to honor friendship, he wanted to honor a political idea. He believed democracy was fragile. He feared it could collapse. He wanted a symbol that would remind people to protect it. Many tourists believe France gave the statue as a simple gift of friendship. That story is incomplete. Bartholdi and his supporters had a deeper purpose. France had its own struggles with freedom. Many French leaders wanted to encourage democracy in America and also inspire it in France. They saw the statue as a lesson. It was a warning. Freedom required effort. The design itself carried hidden meaning. The statue held a torch. This torch did not celebrate victory. It represented guidance. It meant freedom must be protected through knowledge. The tablet in her hand carried the date July 4th, 1776. This was not decoration. It reminded viewers of rebellion against control. Another man played a critical role. His name was Gustave Eiffel. Many people know him for building a tower in Paris, but few know he built the internal skeleton of the statue. He designed it to move slightly in the wind. Without this design, the statue would have cracked. This hidden structure allowed the statue to survive storms. But the greatest challenge was not engineering, it was money. The American government did not pay for the pedestal. This shocks many people today. The statue arrived in New York Harbor in June 1885. It came in pieces. It waited in crates. It could not be assembled. The pedestal was incomplete. For months, the statue lay silent. A newspaper publisher named Joseph Pulitzer stepped forward. He launched a campaign through his newspaper. He asked ordinary people to donate small amounts. Children sent coins. Workers sent small wages. Over 120,000 people gave money. Most gave less than $1. This revealed something important. The statue was not built by governments alone. It was built by ordinary people. Yet another myth hides beneath the surface. Many believe immigrants first saw the statue as a welcome sign. This idea became popular later, but in the early years, the statue did not serve that role. Immigration officials worked elsewhere. The statue was not part of immigration processing. It stood nearby, but it did not greet immigrants in an official way. This leads to another landmark whose truth has been misunderstood for generations. In 1892, Ellis Island opened as the main immigration station. Over 12 million people passed through its halls. Today, many families believe officials there changed their names. This story appears in books and films. It is repeated across generations. But historical records show this did not happen. Immigration officials worked from ship manifests. These lists were created before ships left Europe. Officials copied names exactly as written. They did not create new names. They did not guess names. Their job was to verify identity, not change it. If names changed, it happened later. Families changed names themselves. They did this to find jobs. They did this to avoid discrimination. They did this to fit into society. This truth shifts the story. Ellis Island was not a place where names were taken. It was a place where identities were tested. The experience inside Ellis Island was not gentle. Doctors watched immigrants as they climbed the stairs. They looked for signs of illness. If someone struggled to walk, they marked their clothing with chalk. This small mark could decide a person's future. Families feared this moment more than the ocean crossing. If doctors suspected disease, immigrants faced inspection. Some waited hours, some waited days. A small number were sent back. About 2% of immigrants were denied entry. This number seems small, but for those families it meant everything. Another hidden truth waits nearby. Before Ellis Island opened, immigrants entered through Castle Clinton. From 1855 to 1980, over 8 million immigrants passed through this fort. This place handled immigration before Ellis Island existed, yet few visitors know its role today. History did not begin at Ellis Island, it continued there. While immigrants searched for hope, another structure rose across the East River. Workers risked their lives to build it. People believed it would connect two growing cities, but fear surrounded it. Construction on the Brooklyn Bridge began in 1869. The designer was John Roebling. He believed suspension bridges could reach new lengths. But tragedy struck early. His foot was crushed in an accident. He died weeks later from infection. His son, Washington Roebling, took control. He entered dangerous underwater chambers called caissons. These chambers allowed workers to dig into the riverbed. The air pressure inside was intense. Workers suffered illness, some died. Washington Roebling himself became sick. He developed paralysis. He could not walk onto the bridge site. Most people believe construction stopped. It did not. His wife, Emily Roebling, stepped forward. She carried instructions from her husband. She studied engineering. She communicated with workers. She oversaw daily progress. Without her, the bridge would not exist. When the bridge opened on May 24, 1883, crowds rushed to cross it. They wanted proof it was safe. But fear returned quickly. 6 days later, on May 30, 1883, a woman stumbled. Someone shouted that the bridge was collapsing. Panic spread. People ran. People fell. 12 people died in the stampede. The bridge stood firm, but trust had already been damaged. To restore confidence, showman P.T. Barnum marched 21 elephants across the bridge in 1884. This demonstration proved strength. It also showed how fear could control public belief. Yet another truth hides in plain sight. Many people believe Wall Street has always stood for finance. They see banks and stock traders. They see wealth and power. But its earliest history tells a different story. In 1711, the city built a slave market on Wall Street. This market stood near the East River. Enslaved Africans were bought and sold there. Men, women, and children stood in public view. Buyers examined them. Prices were negotiated. This market operated for over 50 years. New York was deeply involved in slavery. By 1730, about 42% of households in New York owned enslaved people. This fact shocks many people today. The financial systems that later grew on Wall Street were shaped during this time. Trade, insurance, and shipping connected to slavery. Wealth flowed through these systems. This truth forces a difficult question. The place now seen as a symbol of wealth began as a place of human suffering. Another turning point came in 1789. Federal Hall stood on Wall Street. There, George Washington took the oath of office as the first president of the United States. Crowds gathered to witness the moment. They believed a new era had begun. Yet slavery still existed in the city. Freedom and slavery lived side by side. This contradiction defined early New York. As years passed, the city grew. Landmarks rose. Stories formed. Some stories became simplified. Others were forgotten. The Statue of Liberty became a symbol of welcome, but it was born from political struggle. Ellis Island became a symbol of identity, but it was a place of inspection and fear. The Brooklyn Bridge became a symbol of progress, but it was built through illness, death, and courage. Wall Street became a symbol of wealth, but it began as a slave market. These truths do not destroy the meaning of these landmarks, they deepen it. They reveal the cost behind greatness. They reveal the people behind the stone and steel. They reveal choices made in moments of uncertainty. And they leave us with a quiet realization. The landmarks people trust the most hold stories they were never fully told. But this is only the beginning. Other landmarks hide deeper truths. Entire communities were erased to create beauty. Massive stations nearly vanished forever. Famous squares once stood for very different purposes. Those stories wait in silence. They wait to be uncovered. In 1857, New York City made a choice that would erase a living community from the map. Visitors now walk across green lawns and quiet paths. Children play near lakes. Musicians perform near fountains. Few pause to ask what stood there before. Fewer still know that homes, churches, and graves once filled that ground. Before Central Park became a public park, the land was not empty. It held farms, small houses, and entire neighborhoods. One of these communities was called Seneca Village. It existed between about 82nd and 89th Streets, near 7th and 8th Avenues. It was founded in 1825. Seneca Village was home to free black New Yorkers. At that time, slavery still existed in New York State until its final abolition in 1827. Free black families sought safety and land ownership. Land meant stability. It meant voting rights for black men who met property requirements under the state constitution of 1821. By the 1850s, Seneca Village had about 225 residents. Many owned their own homes. There were 3 churches, including the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church. There was also a school. Census records show families working as laborers, domestic workers, and skilled tradespeople. This was not a temporary settlement. It was a planned, stable community. In 1853, the New York State Legislature approved the creation of Central Park. City leaders argued that New York needed open space. They pointed to growing crowds, rising disease, and crowded housing in Lower Manhattan. They believed a grand park would improve public health. To build it, the city used the power of eminent domain. Officials forced more than 1,600 residents to leave. This included people in Seneca Village and nearby communities. Property owners received compensation. Many believed the payments were far below the true value. Families were uprooted, churches were demolished, cemeteries were disturbed. The public story later described the land as rocky and empty. This claim was repeated in guidebooks and early histories. It made the park's creation appear simple. But archaeological studies conducted in the early 21st century confirmed foundations, household items, and evidence of structured living. The erasure was deliberate. The park's design came from Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux. Their Greensward plan won a competition in 1858. They envisioned rolling lawns, wooded paths, and open meadows. Construction began soon after. Workers reshaped the land, they blasted rock, they planted thousands of trees, they created lakes and bridges. The transformation was vast. By the park's official opening stages in the 1860s and 1870s, little remained of the original settlements. Visitors saw beauty. They did not see loss. The myth that Central Park rose from wilderness hides a deeper truth. It replaced a community that had built security during a hostile time. Seneca Village represented independence for black New Yorkers during a period of racial violence and legal limits. The park's beauty came at a cost. Now shift your eyes downtown. Listen for trains. Watch the flow of commuters beneath painted ceilings. Look up at the constellations above. You stand in a building that almost vanished. Grand Central Terminal opened on February 2, 1913. Its Beaux-Arts design came from the firms Reed and Stem and Warren and Wetmore. It replaced an earlier station known as Grand Central Depot, built in 1871. Many visitors believe the terminal has always been protected. That is not true. In the 1950s and 1960s, rail travel declined. Highways and air travel grew stronger. The terminal's owners struggled financially. Maintenance costs rose. Parts of the building were altered to generate income. Advertising signs covered interior walls. The main waiting room was divided. In 1963, the owners proposed building a skyscraper above the terminal. The plan involved demolishing part of the structure. The destruction of Pennsylvania Station in 1963 had already shocked the city. That station, built in 1910, had been torn down to make way for Madison Square Garden and an office complex. The loss of Pennsylvania Station sparked public anger. Photographs of its demolished columns circulated widely. Many felt a historic treasure had been sacrificed. This anger fueled a new preservation movement. In 1965, New York City created the Landmarks Preservation Commission. That same year, Grand Central Terminal was designated a landmark. This gave it legal protection. The terminal's owners challenged the designation in court. The case reached the United States Supreme Court in 1978. In Penn Central Transportation Company versus New York City, the court upheld the city's right to protect the building. The decision strengthened preservation laws nationwide. One public figure played a visible role in the campaign to save Grand Central. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis spoke out in its defense. She wrote letters. She attended hearings. She argued that once great buildings are destroyed, they cannot be replaced. Her involvement drew national attention. The turning point came with the Supreme Court decision. It confirmed that cultural value mattered. Profit alone could not decide a landmark's fate. The terminal survived. Later restoration work in the 1990s cleaned soot from the ceiling. The Zodiac mural, once darkened by smoke, revealed bright stars again. Visitors today admire its beauty. Few realize how close it came to destruction. Now walk north again. Stand beneath bright lights. Hear traffic. See giant screens flashing advertisements. Many believe this place has always been about entertainment. They think it was born for celebration. But Times Square tells a different story. The area was once called Longacre Square. It was known for horse trading and carriage businesses in the 19th century. In 1904, the New York Times newspaper moved its headquarters to a new tower there. The city renamed the square after the newspaper. The first New Year's Eve celebration in Times Square took place in 1904. Fireworks filled the sky. In 1907, a ball dropped from the tower for the first time. This tradition continues. But the image of constant glamour is incomplete. During the 1920s and 1930s, the area included theaters and hotels. It attracted crowds for Broadway shows. Yet by the 1960s and 1970s, the neighborhood had declined. Adult theaters, crime, and visible poverty changed its reputation. City leaders attempted various reforms. In the 1980s and 1990s, redevelopment projects reshaped the district. Older buildings were replaced or renovated. Corporate offices and family-friendly businesses moved in. The myth says Times Square was always the heart of entertainment. The truth shows cycles of growth, decline, and reinvention. This pattern reflects New York itself. Now pause. Think of what these stories share. Central Park hides an erased black community. Grand Central Terminal nearly fell to economic pressure. Times Square transformed from carriage district to theater hub to troubled zone and back to commercial center. Each landmark carries layers of struggle. Each reveals choices made under pressure. Each challenges the simple version taught to visitors. The deeper truth does not weaken these landmarks, it strengthens them. It shows that history is not smooth. It shows that progress can harm as well as heal. The turning points matter. The eviction of Seneca Village in the 1850s reshaped the city's social map. The Supreme Court decision in 1978 shaped preservation law across America. The redevelopment of Times Square reshaped public space in late 20th century New York. Behind stone and steel stand human decisions. Behind bright lights stand contested pasts. When you walk through these places, you stand on stories of ambition, fear, courage, and loss. The myths made them simple. The facts make them powerful. And this is the true lesson of New York's landmarks. They are not frozen monuments. They are evidence. Evidence of conflict, evidence of vision, evidence of sacrifice. The shocking truth is not that these landmarks are false. It is that their real stories were always deeper than the versions told on postcards. And once you learn that truth, you cannot see them the same way again.